So what actually happens when a local politician completely flips the script? Picture this. Instead of yelling the same old tired campaign slogans from a podium, they pivot. They start relying on a highly structured, data-centric knowledge partnership. Right? It almost sounds like a contradiction in terms for politics. But today, we're diving into a fascinating explainer of this exact concept. We're going to unpack an alternative to the standard political playbook and see how raw data and intellectual infrastructure might actually be the ultimate political weapon. Because, let's be honest, we are witnessing a massive shift in how local governance gets done. Think about the old way for a second. You've got public faces fighting for the spotlight, winging it with political guesswork, and handing out empty promises. It's reactive. But then, you have this new way, a proactive, strictly evidence-based strategy. Here, the political advisor isn't trying to be a co-candidate, they're acting as a behind-the-scenes structural architect. It's not just about winning the next election cycle anymore, it's literally about building a governance machine that is intellectually rigorous from day one. To truly wrap our heads around this shift, we're doing an insider masterclass teardown of a confidential strategic document. It's pretty rare we get to look under the hood like this. This proposal was drafted back in June 2026 by an author and researcher named Kassan Kimani, and it was pitched to a politician, Honorable Titus, for the Kandara constituency. We're going to deconstruct this entire evidence-based political machine piece by piece to see exactly how a modern knowledge partner pitches a leader.
Okay, here's our executive briefing agenda. We'll start by redefining constituency leadership, do a quick local reality check, look at the strategic value proposition, break down their 7 flagship products, map out the 90-day roadmap, and wrap up with how they actually measure impact and risk. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Redefining Constituency Leadership.
Right out of the gate, the author Kimani is arguing for a completely new model of leadership, one that actually outlasts the typical boom and bust cycle of an election. The positioning here is just fascinating. He explicitly writes to Han, not a campaign face, not a co-candidate. He is offering a strategic knowledge partnership. So instead of just plastering the politician's face on 100 billboards, the pitch is to take dense academic research and transform it into highly digestible toolkits for the community, taking complex policy and turning it into actionable steps regular constituents can actually use.
Moving on to Section 2, the Kandara Reality Check.
Now, you absolutely cannot propose a data-driven solution without first doing a reality check on the ground truth. And Kandara, with its roughly 175,000 residents, is basically a perfect microcosm of modern African challenges. When you look at the raw demographics, the story is clear. You've got a massive youth bulge. 33% of the population is under 14. That demands huge educational investments. Then, a 58% working-age core, who are desperately looking for enterprise and job opportunities. And finally, that 9% elderly bracket. In a farming community, that points to an urgent need for succession planning and local agribusiness. This specific data dictates every single strategic move they make.
And they take it a step further. When you map out Kandara's fixed distinct wards, it becomes incredibly obvious that a one-size-fits-all policy just isn't going to cut it. The strategist breaks it down zone by zone. For example, Gaichanjiru urgently needs market infrastructure and formalization for small businesses. Itharu, which is heavily populated by youth, is battling a massive digital divide. Meanwhile, Ruchu is the coffee heartland, struggling with an aging farmer demographic. It's this extreme granularity that ensures the solutions actually hit the target.
But here is probably the most alarming piece of intelligence from the whole audit. Check this out. Primary school enrollment is sitting at a fantastic 93.9%. That is a super strong foundation, right? But then, secondary enrollment just falls off a cliff, plummeting to 37.8%. That is a massive, urgent transition gap. It's basically a systemic crisis where thousands of kids are dropping out of the system, which directly fuels youth unemployment down the line. And this right here, this is exactly the concrete problem the strategist is pitching to solve.
Section 3. The Strategic Value Proposition. So you might be wondering, how does this advisor actually deploy all these solutions while making the politician look good, safely? They call it protecting the principal. The advisor operates under a strict, non-negotiable mandate to stay completely behind the scenes. This is not a partnership of equals in the public eye. Think of it like this. The structural architect builds a high-performance engine, but Honorable Titus is the one sitting in the driver's seat. That guarantees the voter attributes all these innovative real-world solutions directly to the politician's leadership.
Which brings us to my absolute favorite part of the strategy, this incredibly self-aware mandate called the 95-5 rule.
It dictates that 95% of the content put out has to focus purely on Kandara's challenges and the politician's vision. Only 5% is used to subtly validate the advisor's technical authority, usually buried in the appendices. The quote here really hits the nail on the head. The voter should never feel like Hassan Kimani is selling books. The focus stays ruthlessly on delivering community value. Zero room for ego.
All right, Section 4. 7 flagship knowledge products. This is where the abstract ideas turn into hard, tangible deliverables, the exact things designed to replace empty promises. Let's do a rapid-fire run-through of this 7-part arsenal. They've got a Vision 2035 blueprint for the long term, an opportunity atlas that maps out local resources, and a youth prosperity toolkit for kickstarting microenterprises. There's also a parent education guide to ease the anxiety around the new competency-based curriculum. Top it off with a digital skills academy, evidence-backed ward listening reports, and quick executive policy briefs. It is a comprehensive, heavy-hitting suite of tools tailored to hit every single pain point we talked about.
Now let's zoom in on that Digital Skills Academy for a second. To get around the very real digital infrastructure gap in rural areas, they aren't proposing some wildly expensive computer lab. That would take years. Instead, they're rolling out a low-data, highly accessible remote training pilot straight to WhatsApp. By using interactive PDFs and microlearning, they are targeting immediate youth income generation using the tech the community literally already has in their pockets. That is just brilliant, localized resource management.
Section 5. The 90-day pilot roadmap.
Because look, a plan is only as good as its execution, right? And this 3-month roadmap is incredibly aggressive. Month 1 is head-down research and intel, auditing data, mapping stakeholders, reviewing past projects. Month 2 pivots straight to engagement and pilot, setting up town hall listening tours and actually launching that 50 youth WhatsApp pilot we just discussed. Then, month 3 is the launch, combining all that fresh field data into the Master Vision 2035 blueprint and hosting a high-impact media event. It's fast, it's structured, and most importantly, it's entirely trackable.
Which leads us to our final section, Section 6, measuring impact and risk.
Modern political consulting cannot survive on good vibes alone. You have to prove your payoff. This strategy locks itself into concrete key performance indicators for those first 90 days. We're talking 2,500 plus constituents engaged, which they verify through digital download counters and town hall registries. They need 50 youth actively finishing modules in the academy, total coverage across all 6 wards, and 5 published policy briefs. If they miss these metrics, the strategy isn't working. It's totally transparent accountability. But obviously, there are structural headwinds. So how do they mitigate the risks? Well, they've got a framework for that too. To fight any claims of political bias, they anchor literally every framework in official national data from places like the Statistics Bureau. To survive tight budget constraints, they go all in on that zero-cost, digital-first WhatsApp distribution before they ever spend a dime on physical printing. And to avoid the strategists looking like they're trying to steal the spotlight, they ruthlessly enforce that 95/5 branding rule. Every single vulnerability has a countermeasure. And that wraps up our teardown. Seeing an advisor, architect policy, neutralize risk, and actually use data to serve a constituency, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is this highly structured, evidence-based knowledge partnership the ultimate future playbook for local governance everywhere? Honestly, it kind of makes the old way of shouting campaign promises and relying on guesswork feel obsolete. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions and always look at the data.